Hi there. Today we're going to discuss the various payments that we accept here at The Good Guys. We're going to talk about some of the policies and the procedures that you as a product specialist, a manager, an MCA, or really in any position should know when you accept payments from our customers. So if you're a brand new associate or if you're a veteran, you'll definitely get some benefits out of today's video. Now first, you should have already taken this test. It's a quick 20-25 question test that asks just a variety of questions to see really where your knowledge is. And what we're going to do today is go over this test. So if you've not taken the test yet, please stop the tape, take the test, and start back up. Now for those of you that have taken the test, let's jump into the test and look at question number 1. List all the credit cards that The Good Guys accepts. Well, how'd you do? There's 8 of them. The Good Guys card, Sony card, MasterCard, American Express, Mitsubishi, Panasonic, Visa, and Discover. So when is it okay to accept a credit card that doesn't have a signature on the back? Well, the answer is after you've checked for a valid ID. Now keep in mind, it's important that if a customer has a credit card that's already signed, it's not necessary for us to ask for ID. However, when the credit card has no signature on the back or says, please see ID, at that point, that's your cue to check the customer's ID. All right, let's go on to the next question. Number 3. List the credit cards that may be used without presenting the physical card. Well, the answer, The Good Guys, Sony, Panasonic, and Mitsubishi. Now, what do these cards have in common? Remember, these are the private label cards. Notice Visa, MasterCard, American Express, and Discover are all credit cards that physically have to be present. Only private label cards can be taken without the actual card in the customer's hand. Okay, on to the next question. What must be stapled to the credit card draft when using an account without the card being present? The answer, a copy of the driver's license. So remember, this only applies for private label cards. So if a customer comes in, they don't have their Good Guys card, you ask for the appropriate ID, you call the bank, you get the account number, it's important that you photocopy the customer's identification and you staple it to the draft that goes in the drawer. Okay, on to the next question. When should the F14 or the no car key be used? Well, the answer, when processing a phone order, when using a Good Guys, Sony, Panasonic, or Mitsubishi account when the card is not present. Now once again, that's a private label card. That's the only time when you should use the F14 key with no card present. All right, on to the next question. Before manually entering a credit card number, you must swipe the card through the reader how many times? Well, the answer is 2. Then, if you're unsuccessful, you need to insert and emboss the reader 2 times. So really what that means is swipe it through 2 different times to make sure that the information is picked up on the magnetic strip. We'll tell you why that's important in just a moment. Question number 7. After doing the above process, the system will automatically prompt you to do what? Well, the answer, manually enter the card number. So make sure that you physically put the card number right next to the POS screen to ensure the numbers match identically. You'd be surprised how easy numbers can easily get transposed. Let's move on to the next question. When a credit card information is manually entered, you are required to manually do what on the card of the credit card draft? The answer, make a manual imprint. It's important that every time we take a credit card that is not swiped, we must have a manual imprint. And this goes for the Visa, MasterCard, American Express, and Discover. These are the commercial cards now versus the private label cards. Now that's important because that's the only way that there's evidence that the card was actually in the store. Okay, let's move on. Next question. Manually entered credit cards cause the Good Guys to pay a higher processing fee and increases the chances of bad debt. True or false? Well, the answer is true. Keep in mind, every time you're manually entering in credit card information, there's a chance that you can make a mistake. Also, the credit card companies charge us a little higher premium every time that we have to manually enter in a card because the chances of the card number being wrong is that much greater because it's not being swiped. All right, let's move on to the next question. When accepting credit cards, in what situations would you ask for a photo ID? Well, the answer has 3 points. The first point is if the charge is over $1,000, and keep in mind a lot of them are. Next, if the back of the card is not signed or if it says CID. And finally, when the customer signs the draft and the signature doesn't match the signature that's on the back of this card. So in those three situations, you are obligated to ask for the customer's ID to ensure that the credit card does belong to the customer. Let's move on to the next question, 11. Which credit cards can be accepted for phone order deposits? The answer? Well, there's three: MasterCard, Visa, and Discover. Now, American Express and the private label credit cards, Sony, Mitsubishi, Good Guys cards, and so on, actually require that the card holder be present for every transaction. So if you have a customer that wants to make a purchase over the phone, they only can use those three cards for a deposit. All right, let's move on to the next question. What percentage of the total purchase may be paid on a phone order? Well, the answer is 10%. We no longer take phone orders for 100% when we include shipping. Next question, what must be written on the credit card draft when processing a phone order? Well, the answer, 10% phone order deposit. You know, a lot of sales counselors write the word signature on file. There's no file out there, okay? You have to make it a point that if the customer is not in the store to sign for it, and it's one of the cards that we do allow phone orders to be placed on, you have to write on the signature part itself, 10% phone order deposit. Okay, let's move on. Next question says, when opening up a new Good Guys account, what must be stapled to the application? Answer, a copy of the driver's license. Now, what's really important here is that the copy needs to be legible. A lot of times we'll make photocopies that the customer's face is completely black or it's so faded you can barely see anything. It's important that not only do the information be legible when you copy the credit card, but you could also get a good interpretation of the customer's face. Let's go on to the next question. When must a manager initial a new Good Guys credit card application? And the answer is easy, every time. That's right, every time a customer opens up a Good Guys card, or at least applies for a Good Guys card, and they have their photo ID present, a manager must be involved to verify that all the information is correct on the credit card application. The credit card application is signed, whether or not the customer accepts or declines the credit card insurance, and the photo ID is present. Let's move on to the next question. When a customer's credit card application is declined, it's okay to give the application back to the customer. True or false? Well, the answer is false. And the reason it's false is because we need proof that the customer allowed us to check their credit file. Next question, list the types of checks that Good Guys accepts as payment. Well, are you ready for this one? There's a bunch of them. First, a personal check. Second, cashier's check. Third, a traveler's check. Fourth, a company check. Fifth, the insurance check. Now, keep in mind there are policies that go around each individual check in terms of an insurance check versus a personal check, and we want you to refer to your SOP for all the information. Next question. Checks must be drawn on a bank in the U.S., Canada, Puerto Rico, or the Virgin Islands, and it must be in U.S. currency. What information must appear but can be handwritten on the check? Well, first, the address. Secondly, the phone number. That means a customer could actually have a check with just their name that has no address or phone number pre-printed by the bank, and we'll accept that check so long as the customer handwrites their home address as well as their phone number. The only exception with phone number would be if the customer doesn't have a phone number or refuses to give out a phone number, then they must write no phone on the check or refused. Now, if we follow those procedures, we're okay. All right, let's move on to the next question. The customer's name must be pre-printed by the bank on the check. True or false? Well, we just discussed that. That's true. Moving on. What do you need to write on the check if a customer does not have a phone or is not willing to give out the phone number? Well, just like we mentioned before, no phone or phone number refused. Okay, let's move on. We're almost done. Number 22. What are the 7 things to look for every time you accept a check? Now remember, there's 7 things. You ready? Number 1, drawn on a U.S., Canadian, Puerto Rican, or Virgin Island bank. Number 2, the name is pre-printed. Number 3, the handwritten amount matches the numeric amount. Number 4, there's a physical address, not a P.O. box on the check. Number 5, that the current date is written on the check, so it can't be pre-dated or post-dated. Number 6, that, well, it's signed. And remember, the signature must match the customer's ID. And finally, that the check is made out to Good Guys. Or if you're in a WOW location, it could be made out to Good Guys or WOW. Let's move on to the next question. Okay, here's a company check question. When accepting a company check, you must call the company to verify that the person who's presenting the check is authorized to use that check. True or false? You'd be surprised at this one. The answer is true. That means if the business is closed, you may not accept the check. All right, here's the last question, and it's about a cashier's check. Now, believe it or not, cashier's checks are the #1 form of fraud industry-wide. And here's the question. You must verify a cashier's check is valid by calling the issuing bank. True or false? The answer is true. As I mentioned earlier, cashier's checks can be easily duplicated, and a lot of times fraudulent checks are cashier's checks because they were never verified by the sales counselor. Well, so how'd you do on the test? Get 100%? If you didn't, don't worry about it, because it's okay to get the answers wrong now as opposed to getting the answers wrong when we have bad debt. And bad debt is when we accept a form of payment that, unfortunately, the good guys doesn't get paid for. Thank you so much for watching, and if you have any other questions about pay type violations, please see your operations manager, your operation development manager, or my personal friend in the whole wide world, Bobak Ghaznavi. Thanks for joining us.